Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being with us again today. So the question comes up often, what does it take to make a great carry gun? Well, you need it to be accurate, you need it to be reliable, and you need to be able to carry it in comfort. The Glock 26 has been doing all of that for over 25 years. So with all the new options and the new high-capacity micro compacts, does the Glock 26 really have anything to offer? Well, we're going to find out in just a minute. All right, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you've been watching our videos before and just haven't had a chance to do so until now, and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can locate that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your computer screen there. Or if you are on a mobile device, you can scroll down below the video and hit subscribe that way. It's a simple thing that helps us out a whole lot, and we really appreciate it. So, Glock 26. I meant to get this in the rotation a long time ago, but we've done a lot of Glocks, and of course there are so many pistols to cover out there, we just get to things as quick as we can. And of course, when I mentioned to my colleagues I was going to be covering the 26, the usual scoffing occurred because, well, you know, in many people's eyes there are just so many better options these days. But we're going to put that to the test. Now, I always like to do a little size comparison, but before I do a side-by-side, of course, if you're not familiar already, if you're not a Glock person, well, the 26 is essentially, you know, the little baby brother of the 19, and of course the 19 is the baby brother of the 17. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference between a Glock 19 and a Glock 26. The length, the grip, you know, there's no comparison that they're quite a bit smaller than the 19. Well, one of the guns that was mentioned that was critical to 26 was the 43X. So, you know, with the existence of the 43X, why even have the 26? Well, okay, I guess that's fair, but let's take a look. So this is a Glock 43X. Now, if you look at these two firearms, they look very similar from the side for a good portion of the firearm, right around the trigger guard, right until you get to about right here, and you can see, of course, you got a lot longer grip. So it's kind of a trade-off, and there's some very obvious reasons behind it, but if you look at it, of course, yes, the 43X is quite a bit slimmer, okay, than the 26, and of course, it has a longer grip. Well, obviously, there's no, you know, magic involved here. The 26 is a double stack, 10-round capacity, 9mm, and the 43X is a 10-round single stack, 9mm. So you are giving something up, you know, having the longer grip on the 43X, because when you look at the difference in how much you have, that's going to make that a little bit easier to conceal. So when you're thinking about the size of the handgun, obviously, since these are for concealed carry, that's going to be one of your primary considerations. All right, we're going to jump right into the features here, but before we do, I want to take a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the Glock 26 for our tabletop review today. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearm safety and education, and we can't thank them enough. So, we're going to do our normal kind of top-down feature review here, but as usual, let's do a quick safety check, remove our magazine, and you can see that the chamber is clear, and we are free of all stuff there, and we are safe. This does come with 2 magazines, so these are 10-round magazines. That gives you a total of 11. Of course, they do make a multitude of aftermarket type magazines if you wish to do that. Of course, the other advantage as far as magazines is if you have, you know, standard Glock, you can take your Glock 19 magazine and you can stick it right in your Glock 26 if that's what you want to do. You could even take your Glock 17 mags or any other standard 9mm Glock magazine. It's a double stack and you can put it right in there. So if you got Glock magazines around for all of your pistols, you have plenty of options to go in your Glock 26. Gun is often used as a backup to the Glock 19 or the Glock 17 for that very reason. So looking at the handgun over at the top here, of course, your sights. This is your typical Glock U-notch and then front dot sight. I prefer, either a Trijicon, high visibility colored front sight or fiber optic or something, but this is great. And as long as your lighting is good enough to see this works just fine. I've done a lot of shooting with just the regular Glock sights, and they're good. You got your rear serrations. Now I was mentioning there's just a few differences between the 26 and then like the Gen 5. Well, one of those differences, you do have front serrations on the Gen 5, which I don't really see how that's a big deal. I can't hardly see myself using front serrations, but that's just me. Of course, you've got your trigger. This is just a Glock triggers to me. Virtually every gun, and we'll talk more about the trigger when we do the range, but to me, pretty much all Glock triggers feel about the same. There's just slight variances between them, but Glock to me has really standardized their trigger, and there's not really a whole lot to talk about there. If you've shot one, I think you've shot most of them. You do have your slide lock and release here. It is only on the left hand side. And of course, to disassemble a Glock, if you've ever done one of these, if you see you've got this little pull down tab here and you have one that matches on the other side, all you have to do is pull the slide back just ever so slightly, pull your tabs down, and then you can push the whole thing forward and off. Once you've done that, of course your rod and your spring tip out, and then your barrel just tips right out. So you can clean those items, get them ready, and put them right back in the gun, and then you simply bring it all back and you're ready to rock and roll again. I think Glock has done a really good job of making their guns easy to use and own and perform the basic maintenance. Because really, if you have to go further than this, if you're not a gunsmith, take it to one. There's plenty of great gunsmiths around at these stores. These guys do this for a living, and they're really good at it, and they'll take care of you. So if it goes beyond that, make sure you take it to a professional. You have your magazine release. Nothing special here. But you got this little thumb groove on top of it, and I think if you've got even if you got a two-handed grip, it does a pretty good job to me of keeping my thumb off of that, and yet I need to access it. It's not a problem. Now, I also mentioned that on the Gen 5, you've got just the flat grip in the front. For a pistol like this that has a really small stubby grip, I actually prefer these finger grooves. I think that if you're going to have a small grip like that, that's a two-finger grip, I actually want some place for those two fingers to go. And I've held both and I've shot both. But I really think that this is the better way to go. So I will forever miss this once these are gone. You've got a really light pattern on the side here. Like I say, your thumb just kind of slides right over this. Now you've got pretty good indentions here and there, and then in the back as well that you can hold on to. But as far as the feel on the sides, it's a little slick. No big deal. And that's typical Glock for you. That's one thing about them. Glocks are they're very consistent. They don't have a lot of frills on them. Of course, you can update your sights pretty easy on a Glock. There's a ton of aftermarket support, including holsters and all kinds of other goodies. And of course, we'll talk about the holsters a little bit more in just a minute. So I mentioned earlier one of my colleagues was kind of scoffing at me when I mentioned I was going to talk about the 26, mainly because this individual believes that the very existence of the 43X kind of makes the 26 like why even carry it? Well, as I said, you do have some size differences, and depending on how you carry that firearm, it might actually make a difference as to how comfortable it's going to be. And actually, for my hand, I like the 43X fine. You've got a larger grip, and I actually can get more of my hand on the gun. But oddly enough, the 26 actually feels more comfortable in my hand because it's wider. I actually like the way it feels in my hand. The other thing is what we're talking about now, and that's the range performance. Glocks are... I don't think I've ever owned a Glock that was finicky about ammo except for one. My 10mm 29, I think I had to shoot a bit before it was doing well in hollow points, but after a couple of boxes it was fine. But pretty much every Glock I've owned, I can just take it out of the box and start shooting it and clean it when I think about it, and it's going to be just fine. So range ammo, no problem. Several boxes, for break-in, and you'll be fine. You don't really have to do a whole lot. I didn't really think you need a, so-called break-in a gun like this. Just shoot it and clean it. I'd trust this from day one. I always like to run some SIG V-Crown through my concealed carry weapons just because it's kind of my go-to. There's lots of great options out there, so this is just me, y'all. I always try the 124 and the 115 just because I get a little bit different results out of them. And not surprisingly, as usual, the 115 is probably the most accurate round that I consistently carry. And with the 26, it was the same way. It's just a really good balance for the gun. The main reason I think the 26 is still relevant, it comes down to the shooting. I can pick this gun up and, punch a, sub 1 inch hole in paper at 21 feet without even really thinking about it, even with these factory sights. It's a good size. It shoots well. It is just got enough real estate on the handgun to where you can get a good two-handed grip. And even with one hand, I can produce really good results that, rival more expensive guns and larger guns. I think the 26 is well made, and as far as failures, like every Glock I've owned, I haven't experienced any catastrophic failures. So if you're looking for something that pretty much anyone can shoot out of the box and shoot pretty well, then the 26, I can confidently say, is something that anyone can do that with. Well, we talked about the difference in what it's like to carry, this firearm versus the 43X or one of the larger guns. One thing I like about the 26 is it's small enough to where this is a gun that I can carry in a holster or I can carry in my pocket. There are some people that are totally against pocket carry, and I get that. But this is the kind of thing that I could drop in a sticky holster and put in my front pocket, and I'd be perfectly happy with. But I actually find myself carrying it usually in something a little bit more elaborate. I actually carry 26 and, of course, the 27, which is the 40 caliber version of this. I often carry both of these firearms on my hip when I'm on the property. When I want a gun, I'm away from home, I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. I don't necessarily need a lot of capacity, but I just want a firearm on me. And I like to do like a Black Hawk, something like this. This is a great little holster, and if I'm going to be running around, if I just, want my, if I'm wearing like a t-shirt and maybe a fishing shirt, and then my outer shirt's going to sit over this, well, I'll go ahead and just wear this outside the waistband, and my shirt can cover it. Very comfortable. I've carried a lot of larger Glocks than these two. One of the other options I like for this is like a crossbreed or equivalent. There's all kinds of people who make, holsters like this, but, something that's got leather and Kydex where you got a couple of clips here, and, this one obviously has had a lot of use. Several, obviously, a lot of different Glock models will fit this because of the shape is consistent with many Glocks. But I've used this type of holster with Glocks many, many, many times. Had really good results, and it's extremely comfortable. So they make a lot of good, single clip or smaller holster options too for this firearm. But when it's loaded, it's very light compared to a lot of other handguns. So if you're going to carry it, pretty much any way you do it, it's going to be pretty comfortable. Well, for people who think the 26 doesn't really have a place in the carry world anymore, as far as I'm concerned, they're wrong. Overall impressions of the 26, you're talking about a gun that's been around for over 25 years, and there's a reason for that. Even with all the new designs, people are still buying 26s. The reason they're doing that is because, as I said, this is a firearm that has, it's proven itself over time. People trust this gun because it's well made, it's accurate, and it'll put up with a lot of abuse. You can take this gun out of the box and you can shoot good groups with it, and you can reproduce that performance every single time with very little effort that has to go into maintaining the firearm. You know, depending on where you go, these things are between $500 and $600. You know, with the standard sites, sometimes you'll find them where you know you can get different deals. But you know, at the end of the day, most of the micro, compact, and compact guns that you see are at least that much. Many of them are a lot more, especially some of the newer ones that you're paying for. You know, the fact that it's a new one, you know, new release. It's considered a premium or a new product. Some of these are really expensive. You've seen some of these that are, you know, $700-800. So for a Glock to be in the $500 to $600 range, I've always thought that was reasonable for a handgun. And for some people, that's still too much, and there's no problem. A lot of people, $200 or $300 is as high as they're going to go, and there's lots of options for that. But if you're okay with being in that little bit higher range, for what you get, it's awful hard to beat the combination of features, reliability, and accuracy that you can get from a Glock's 26. And a testament to that is the fact that it's been around for all this time and people are still using them. So it's a good gun, and it being old hasn't changed a thing. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. As always, we appreciate you being with us. We'll be back very soon with another video for you. So until that time, everybody, please be safe and have a great day. Thank you.